Everyone in the office thought Mr. Howard was just the quiet janitor. He showed up early, cleaned every corner with care, smiled at everyone, but no one knew. He understood everything they said, in 9 different languages. One day, the CEO was speaking Italian to a guest. Mr. Howard walked by and corrected his grammar. The room went silent. That was just the beginning. He sang along fluently to Korean pop music during a staff lunch, helped a German intern who was struggling with paperwork, and casually mentioned how he once translated for diplomats in the Middle East. Turns out this janitor had a past more impressive than most people in the building. But here's the real twist. He didn't want a promotion. He wanted something else, something that changed dozens of lives around him. This story isn't just about hidden talent. It's about purpose, humility, and the unexpected ways people touch our lives. If you've ever wondered whether the quietest person in the room might be the wisest, you're about to find out. And if you're short on time, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, so you won't miss the rest of this story or the next one just like it. Because the world is full of extraordinary people hiding in ordinary places. Ready to meet one? Mr. Howard arrived before sunrise like always. The office was still dark, just a hum of vending machines and the glow of the exit signs. He moved like someone who had done this 1,000 times, polishing glass doors, adjusting picture frames, picking up coffee cups left behind by people too busy to notice him, but he noticed everything. On the 14th floor, a young German intern was on the phone, pacing nervously. He was arguing with someone, frustrated, overwhelmed, speaking in German. Mr. Howard didn't interrupt, not until the boy sat down, head in his hands. "You're not wrong," Howard said gently, in perfect German. The intern froze. His eyes widened. "You speak German?" Mr. Howard smiled. "A little." The next morning, that intern brought it up in the break room, loud enough for others to hear. And just like that, the whispers started. The janitor knows German? Then it happened again. During a staff lunch, someone played a K-pop song. Just a silly moment, everyone laughing. Mr. Howard walked by and sang along, every word. Perfect pronunciation. People thought it was a prank. Someone even filmed it and posted it online. By the end of the week, Mr. Howard had over 30,000 views on TikTok. No dancing. Just a janitor casually singing Korean pop lyrics like he was born there. On Friday, the CEO called him into her office. She had that corporate smile, polite, curious, guarded. "Mr. Howard, would you mind if I asked, how many languages do you speak?" Howard looked at the floor, then up. "I stopped counting after 9. There was a long silence. He continued. "I used to work in intelligence, interpreting for missions across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia." The CEO didn't say a word, just nodded slowly, trying to process it all. Back at his cart, Mr. Howard tied up a trash bag, as if nothing had changed, but everything had. The next week, he walked past the reception desk. The receptionist, Mina, had Korean roots. She stood and bowed slightly. "You sing better than my uncle," she laughed. Howard grinned. "Then your uncle has serious competition." Mina giggled. "You really could have been famous." He paused. "Fame isn't the same as purpose." Mina nodded, not fully understanding but feeling the weight of his words. In the days that followed, Mr. Howard started receiving strange gifts. A little cactus from the intern, a tin of Danish cookies from accounting, a thank you card in 4 languages from the design team. He didn't want attention. But for once, the spotlight found him anyway. Then came the day he helped Marcus. Marcus was a facilities assistant. Always cheerful, always humming. But that day he was different, quiet, lost. Howard noticed. He followed Marcus to the rooftop, where he found him sitting alone, staring at nothing. "You okay, kid?" Marcus didn't answer. Howard sat beside him. Minutes passed. Then Marcus whispered, "My dad passed away last night." Howard said nothing, just sat, silent, steady. Then in a soft voice he started speaking in Spanish. Marcus looked over, surprised. My dad only ever spoke Spanish at home. Howard nodded. Tell me about him. They talked for hours. In English. In Spanish. In memory. At the end, Marcus stood up and hugged him. Thank you, you made today survivable. That moment never made it to TikTok, but it changed a life, and that's what Mr. Howard kept doing. Not just speaking in different languages, but listening in them, feeling in them, healing with them. If stories like this matter to you, you might want to tap that subscribe button. So, you don't lose this story halfway through, and so you can find the next one waiting when you come back. Because the world needs more people like Mr. Howard, and we all need to be reminded. The quiet ones often carry the loudest wisdom. The office couldn't stop talking about Mr. Howard, but he just kept mopping floors and fixing jammed printers. It wasn't until the annual Employee Appreciation Day that the real questions began. Each department had to give a short presentation. Something fun, something light. Mina, the receptionist, stood up during marketing's turn and said, Actually, we want to dedicate our 5 minutes to someone very special. Everyone turned. Howard, already halfway through polishing a glass panel, froze. A slideshow began, clips of him singing in Korean, footage of him helping the German intern. Someone had even recorded him reading a bedtime story in French to a coworker's daughter over Zoom during lockdown. As the video ended, Mina spoke again. We don't know who you really are, Mr. Howard, but we're grateful you're here. The room burst into applause. Some clapped politely. Others rose to their feet. Howard smiled, but something flickered in his eyes. A shadow. Regret? Later that evening, after everyone left, he stayed behind. Longer than usual, Marcus came back to grab his forgotten keys and saw Howard sitting alone in the break room, staring at a black and white photo. In the photo, a younger Howard, dressed in military gear, standing next to a man who looked almost identical to him, but younger. Marcus sat down slowly. Your brother? Howard nodded. His name was Sam. He was better than me at everything. Marcus hesitated. He's still around? Howard looked up, eyes distant. No, lost him overseas. We worked together. One mission went wrong, and I walked out alone. Silence hung in the air. Marcus swallowed. That why you quit? Howard nodded again. I had every medal they give out, but none of it could bring him back. His voice broke, and just like that, the office janitor became something else entirely. A man trying to live quietly under the weight of a past no one could see. The next morning, he didn't show up. People assumed he was just late. But by noon, HR sent out a message. Mr. Howard has taken personal leave. Please respect his privacy. The office felt emptier. For days, people speculated. Some thought he'd been recruited. Again. Others whispered about PTSD. But Mina, she cried. He finally opened up, she told Marcus. And then he disappeared. A week passed. Then, a small envelope arrived at the front desk. No return address. Inside was a note. Neat handwriting. One line, I need to finish something, and below that, a plane ticket to Istanbul. Marcus, curious and concerned, did something bold. He reached out to an old friend in Army intelligence. What he found shocked him. Howard wasn't just in intelligence. He was the translator in a mission that had gone horribly wrong. Classified files, missing diplomats, a cover-up, and most chilling of all, an unfinished case involving a stolen identity tied to his brother's name. The trail had gone cold in Turkey. Until now. Mina gasped when Marcus told her. He's not just traveling, she whispered. He's trying to put ghosts to rest. Back, at the office, things changed. People began greeting the janitor staff by name. They left thank you notes, made coffee for the cleaners, even set up a language board in the break room with phrases in different tongues. Hello? Thank you. You matter. because Howard had reminded them of something they'd all forgotten. Every person has a story, and sometimes the ones who clean your crumbs once saved lives in places you'll never see. If you've ever wished the world noticed the quiet ones a little more, maybe this story is a good place to start. And hey, if you're finding this journey as powerful as we are, tap that subscribe button now, so you won't miss what happens next, or the next extraordinary person we uncover, because Mr. Howard's story isn't over yet. In fact, it's only just beginning. The year was 1997, a dusty outpost in northern Iraq. The sun beat down on endless sand. Two American operatives crouched behind a crumbling wall, one with a headset, the other watching the horizon with a sniper's calm. "Target in 5 minutes," said Sam. Howard nodded. He was younger then, sharper in uniform, but that same watchful look was in his eyes. They were brothers not just in blood, but in mission. Born 10 months apart, raised by a single mother in Detroit, they had joined the Army together at 17. Sam had the strength. Howard had the words. Together, they were a team that intelligence agencies quietly referred to as the Twins of Silence. But something went wrong that day. A deal meant to free kidnapped diplomats turned into an ambush. Howard had translated every word of the agreement. But someone inside, had sold them out. Explosions, gunfire, confusion in 6 languages. When the dust settled, Sam was gone. Howard searched for hours, days, weeks, but no body. No remains. Just silence. Then came the call from high command. "He's presumed dead. The mission is sealed. You are not to pursue this further." But Howard never believed it. Not entirely. Back in Istanbul, present day, he walked through the Grand Bazaar like a ghost. No tourist excitement in his steps. He visited an old contact, a retired fixer named Bahar. She served tea without asking. "I knew you'd come one day," she said. "You never stopped looking, did you?" Howard shook his head. Bahar slid a photo across the table. A man with a beard, older, but unmistakable. It was Sam, or someone who looked like him. Howard stared at it for a long time. "Where?" Bahar hesitated. "He goes by another name now. Has since 2001. Works in the port under a shell company." "But if it's really him?" "Howard? He didn't want to be found." Howard stood. "Everyone wants to be found. They just forget it." That night he sat alone in a hostel room. He took out a small notebook, flipped through pages of names, dates, dead ends. And then he stopped at a drawing, a sketch Sam once made of the two of them as kids sitting on the porch eating popsicles. It was crude, but filled with life. He smiled for the first time in days. Then the door creaked open. A shadow stepped inside. Howard turned slow. "Still writing in those little books?" the man said, voice gruff, aged. Howard froze. Sam, older, tired, but very much alive. They stood facing each other, neither moved. Then Howard whispered, "You were dead." Sam shook his head. "I had to be." Howard stepped forward, fists clenched. "You left me to live with it, the failure, the guilt." Sam looked down. "And I lived with something worse, the lie. Turns out after the ambush, Sam was pulled out by a rogue agency that faked his death for their own purposes. Deep undercover, no contact, no family. I tried to get word to you." "I did," Sam said. "But by the time I got out, it had been years. You had built another life." Howard shook his head. "I didn't build anything, I just disappeared into a mop closet." Silence, then laughter, dry, painful, real. Sam grinned. "Of course you did. You always said cleaning helped you think." They sat together that night. Two ghosts reunited, trying to remember how to be brothers again. "You still play chess?" Sam asked. "Only when I'm beating interns," Howard replied. Sam chuckled. "You teach them anything?" Howard shrugged. "How to listen." There was a long pause. Then Sam said, "You always listened better than I did." And just like that, the hurt began to lift. Because some wounds don't heal with time. They heal with truth, and with someone willing to chase it across oceans. If stories like this mean something to you, you can subscribe now, save this story, rewatch it when you need reminding that some endings do get rewritten. Howard didn't come to Istanbul for closure. He came for connection, and now, he had it again. But the world had changed while they were apart, and someone else was about to enter the picture. They stayed up until dawn, two brothers reunited not with fanfare but quiet conversation and cold tea. Sam shared stories Howard had never heard, missions in places not marked on any map, names he couldn't repeat. And Howard? He just listened. Like always. The next morning they walked by the Bosphorus, the water calm, the breeze carrying memories. You ever regret it? Sam asked. Every day, Howard said softly. They paused at a bench. Sam looked out toward the sea. I have a daughter. Howard blinked. What? Sam nodded. She's 12, lives here. Her name is Elif. Howard tried to speak, but the words didn't come. She doesn't know about me, Sam continued. Her mother raised her alone. I've watched from a distance, sent money, letters I never mailed. He handed Howard a photo. A young girl with bright eyes and her father's smile. Howard studied it for a long time. You should tell her. Sam shook his head. What would I say? Hi, I'm the ghost of a man who faked his death and left your mother to raise you alone. Howard didn't smile. You're here now. That's a start. But then, everything changed. That afternoon, as they returned to Sam's apartment, the door was already open. Inside, drawers pulled out, photos on the floor, a chair overturned. Someone had been there. Sam's face went pale. They found me. Who? Sam didn't answer. He rushed to a safe behind a painting. It was empty. They took the drive. Howard looked around. What was on it? Sam hesitated, then finally said, Proof. Of who betrayed us. Back then? Howard froze. You mean, Sam nodded. The ambush in Iraq. I wasn't just faked. I was silenced. Because I found out someone high up sold us out. Howard sat down slowly, the weight of the truth pressing in. I thought I misread the intel, he said. Blamed myself for years. Sam looked him in the eyes. You didn't. You read it right. It was rewritten after you submitted it. Howard's hands trembled. Why now? He asked. Sam took a deep breath. Because whoever it was, they're running for Senate next year. Howard stared at him. You're saying this goes that high? Sam nodded. And if I testify, they'll bury me for real this time. There was a long silence. Then Howard stood. Then we don't run, we expose them. Sam looked up. You'd risk everything? Howard's eyes were steel. I already lost everything. I'm not losing the truth. That night they moved to a safe house. Howard called in an old favor from a journalist named Dana, who once covered war zones and never backed down from power. She arrived, with nothing but a backpack and a tired smile. You always did pick the loudest quiet stories. Howard grinned. This one's more personal. Sam handed her a backup copy of the files, encrypted, but intact. As Dana scrolled through them, her face went pale. This will explode. Everything. Good, Sam said, but just then the lights flickered. A shadow moved past the window. Howard reached for the side drawer, instinct from years past. Gunshots shattered the night. Dana ducked. Sam pulled Elif's photo from his jacket and stuffed it in his boot. Then everything went black. Howard woke up on the floor. Sam was gone. Dana was bruised but alive. The files? Gone again. And on the table? A note in block letters. Stay quiet. Or she'll never know who you are. Below it, a printed photo of Elif. Howard picked it up, hands shaking. They weren't just coming after the truth anymore. They were coming after the only innocent left in this story. And now, it was personal. If your heart's pounding like ours is, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Not just to keep up, but so you don't lose this thread. Because what comes next will test everything Mr. Howard thought he believed. He was once a man who ran from his past. Now he's about to fight for the future. 3 days had passed. Howard hadn't slept. He hadn't shaved. His eyes were bloodshot, but his mind sharp as ever. He'd lost Sam again. But this time it was worse. Now a child's life was at stake. Elif. Howard had never met her, but he knew her. In Sam's words. In the smile from that photograph. In the way Sam clutched her picture tighter than a weapon. She was everything. And now, she was a target. The enemy wasn't hiding anymore. They were watching. And Howard, he had a choice to make. It started in a cafe tucked in a side street of Istanbul. A girl no older than 12 sat at a table drawing cartoons on a napkin. Her mother, tired but graceful, stirred tea. Howard sat 2 tables away, not staring but never looking away. Elif. He recognized the way she tilted her head when she focused. Sam did the same thing at that age, but he couldn't approach. Not yet. He waited. And that's when a stranger stepped out of a black car across the street. Sunglasses, earpiece, wrong place, wrong time, wrong man. Howard stood calmly and walked straight past the girl. He dropped a coin under her table, knelt to retrieve it, and whispered just 3 words. "Tell your mom." Then he was gone. Back on the move. Back in the shadows. In the safe house, Dana paced. "They're targeting a child now," she hissed. "This isn't just about exposure anymore. It's about silencing the future." Howard sat silently. Then, slowly he pulled something from his jacket. A flash drive. Dana's eyes widened. "You had a copy?" Howard nodded. "Always do." "Then let's release it." He shook his head. "Not yet. If we go public now, they'll erase her. They'll erase Sam." "So what's the plan?" Howard looked up. "You're going to America." The airport was crowded. No one paid attention to an older man hugging a woman in a coat and hat. Dana held the flash drive tight. "You trust me with this?" "You're not just a journalist," Howard said. "You're the only one. I've seen stand and fire and not blink." She hesitated. "What about you?" Howard smiled faintly. "I'm too old to run, but not too old to finish something." As she disappeared into the crowd, Howard turned back to Istanbul, his path clear. He had one last move left. He met her at sunset, by the water. Elif's mother was cautious, her eyes sharp with questions. "You're his brother?" she asked. Howard nodded. "I was." "And where is he now?" Howard paused, then said softly, "Somewhere between yesterday and justice." She didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She simply nodded. "I told her he was a good man." "He was," Howard said, "but the world made him disappear." Elif approached slowly, holding a drawing. It was 2 stick figures holding hands. One had a tiny mustache. The other wore sunglasses. "This is you and my dad," she said. Howard took the picture, his hands trembling. "He used to draw just like this," he whispered. Elif smiled. "Mom says I have his hands." Howard knelt. "You have more than that. You have his courage." Then slowly, he reached into his pocket and handed her the last thing Sam had written. A note. Folded, worn. Inside, just one line. "I'm sorry. I couldn't be your today, but I'll always be your why." Elif held the note like treasure. And Howard, he felt something shift. A weight lifting. That night, Howard made one final call. A secure line. Dana's voice answered. "It's out," she said. "I released the files an hour ago. Every major outlet has it now." Howard nodded. "Then it's done." "No," Dana said. "It just began." The next morning, news broke around the world. A decorated senator under investigation. The 1997 ambush revisited. whistleblowers coming forward, and one photo among the reports. Two brothers, smiling, young, whole, Sam and Howard. Together again. Howard walked alone by the water, no headlines, no medals, just wind and memory. A boy passed by and asked, "Hey, mister, were you famous once?" Howard smiled. "No, just someone who remembered." If this part of the story touched something inside you, consider subscribing, not just for the ending, but for the truth in between. Stories like this matter, especially when they remind us it's never too late to protect what matters, to speak for someone who can't, to become someone's reason why. 1 year later, the city was quieter, but not forgotten. In a modest auditorium at the edge of town, people began to gather. Not celebrities, not politicians, just neighbors, students, teachers, families. The banner overhead read, "In honor of Howard Lane, for a life of quiet bravery." As the ceremony began, there was no music, no spotlight, just the sound of footsteps, and a photo slideshow of a man few had really known. But today they did. Howard Lane, once just the night janitor at the local school, was being honored not for his title, but for what he carried in silence. Compassion, wisdom, and a truth he never let die. Some came to say thank you. Some came because they finally knew what he'd done. But most came because they finally understood who he was. The new CEO of the district took the podium. She cleared her throat and said, "We used to call him just the janitor." But we were wrong. He wasn't just a janitor. He was a quiet genius walking among us. He didn't speak much, but when he did, people listened, and when he didn't, he was still teaching us. About humility, about integrity, about doing the right thing when no one's watching. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, because everyone realized the hallway hero they'd walked past for years had always been leading them. Then a small voice came from the side of the stage. A boy, no older than 10, walked nervously toward the podium, holding a single bouquet of yellow flowers. He looked out at the crowd, then down at his shoes. "My name is Aaron," he said softly. "Mr. Howard used to wait with me after school when my mom worked late. He never made me feel like a burden." The boy paused, then looked up. "He once told me, it's okay to be quiet. Quiet people still shine." He held up the flowers. "These are for him, because he saw me when no one else did." The room stood still. No applause, just hearts breaking and healing. Aaron walked to the center, placed the flowers by Howard's photo, and whispered, "Thank you for noticing me. Sometimes the people we overlook carry the greatest wisdom. They don't ask to be seen. They don't ask for credit. They simply live their truth. One quiet act at a time. You just have to stop, listen, and maybe learn a new language, the language of kindness, of quiet courage, of those who speak, by simply being there." Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, share it, and don't forget to subscribe. Because sometimes, the best heroes are the ones you never saw coming. I've worked with stories like this for over 30 years, stories buried under politics, pride, and the price of silence. But what struck me most here wasn't the conspiracy, or the cover-up, or even the courage to expose it all. What stayed with me was a brother who waited, a man who never stopped believing his past mattered, and a girl who might never know how close she came to becoming a footnote in someone else's game. See, in the end, this wasn't just a story about secrets. It was about legacy, the kind that isn't measured in medals, but in memories, in letters never sent, in photos folded quietly and kept close to the heart. Now I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever carried a truth too heavy to share? Have you ever had to choose between the easy silence and the hard honesty? Share it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story moved you even just a little, stick around, there's more coming. Real stories, human stories, the kind that stay with you long after the credits roll. Subscribe to the channel, not just so you don't miss the next part, but because sometimes the truth needs more than one voice to be heard. Thank you for watching. And if you're still here, you already understand what so many forget. Some stories don't end. They live on, in the telling.